This is Comic Picks by the Glick, and here's your host, Jason Glick.
Yeah, and here I am, back from Comic-Con after our most recent podcast, and God, man, it's like I was there for 4.5 days, saw lots of great stuff, saw Scott McCloud, Grant Morrison, Stan Lee, Gerard Way, all in person, lots of great stuff, but probably going to talk about that later on No Podcast for Old Men, possibly. But hey,
possibly. Huh?
I'm here to talk about all the comic books I brought in the 4.5 days I was there.
All right. So you're basically your haul man.
Yeah. Okay, well, not all of my haul. Just like I've only read through about half of it so far. Mm-hmm. I was to talk about in detail about all the comic books I got there. Well, just maybe going on for like 2.5 hours or more. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going through the highlights of what I've read so far. Well, highlights and lowlights.
So what's first up on your list here?
Okay, first up is Sam and Twitch, the Brian Michael Bendis Collection, Volume 2. Now, Sam and Twitch are best known as the detectives in Todd McFarlane's Spawn series. Mm-hmm. And several years back, they were spun out into their own series written by Brian Michael Bendis, who does great crime fiction, and also gone on to even bigger fame as the writer of Ultimate Spider-Man and New Avengers. Yeah. This, however, plays to his strengths as a crime fiction writer, because he's got to start writing great gritty tales such as Fire, Goldfish, and Jinx. And Sam and Twitch basically has Tom McFarlane's detective characters, Sam Burke and Twitch Williams, investigating a couple of different cases. One of them being some witchcraft related slayings. Another guy who was shot and then had an egg cracked open over him. Yeah, and the death of Twitch Williams' girlfriend. Now,
okay.
I'll be the first to say that these stories they don't really push the boundaries in any new way. I mean, they're good, straightforward crime stories. I mean, you get to see some good investigative stuff with Sam and Twitch. I'm pursuing leads, like talking to criminals and interrogating them, like fun stuff. And the art is decent to excellent, because while the first half is done by Alberto Ponticelli, he handles things well enough. The second half, which basically involves Sam and Twitch tracking down the murderer of Twitch's girlfriend. It has some art by Alex Maleev, who went on to do some great stuff with Bendis on Daredevil. Yeah, and also it benefits because the second story involves Bendis' bounty hunter Jinx Alameda from his trademark series Jinx, which I just mentioned, and that was a lot of fun. It's a good action story where they're tracking down a reckless bounty hunter named Bilal who's responsible for all this. And I guess I'm not saying this is like world-shattering stuff, but it's like you're looking for some good crime-oriented stuff. I'm highly recommended. It's definitely a step up from Bendis' first story on the series, Udaku, which was marred by a very generic antagonist, which basically like it's the whole mystery of the first series was like, hey, who is Udaku? Who is this person? And eventually revealed that it's the South Africans. Mm. Okay, well, there was no real evidence that it was the South Africans at all. I mean, you could have said it was the Portuguese, it was the French, it was the Italians, it was anyone. But no, he just put in the South Africans as like a generic antagonist. Yeah.
Are they trying to? Was it? We're trying to reflect an older time or something like that? Or,
I don't know. It's like
they just tossed it in there because they could.
Actually, it was a good start with they had lots of good details, but it was a case where the parts were not. The whole was less than the sum of its parts. Mm. Yeah. Anyway, moving on to less noteworthy stuff is Spider-Man: The Black Cat.
When you first told me about this, I was just like, wow, okay, this sounds kind of cool.
Yeah, because basically Spider-Man teamed with the Black Cat to find out about the murder, or Spider-Man's investigating the heroin overdose of one of his students, and Black Cat is investigating the disappearance of one of her friends. Mm-hmm. Now,
who does this? Who wrote this story?
Just about to say that, because, like I said, this would be like a fairly, like I said, I probably would have viewed this series as a second thought. What's the fact that it was written by comic booking general geek idol Kevin Smith. Mm. Yeah, and it's also noteworthy, or should I say infamous, for the fact that Smith took a 3-year break between issues 3 and 4 to finish it.
Aha, 3 years.
Yeah. Based on what came in the second half of the series versus the first, he should have kept waiting. Because, really, the first half of the series has lots of good Spider-Man-related action. I mean, it's it's fun seeing Smith take on like Spider-Man's traditional one-liners, and he writes a good Black Cat as well. And he has a relationship down pretty well because they were dating for a while before Spider-Man finally went and married Mary Jane. I mean, it's good. It's fun stuff for the first half, and then you get into the second half, which delves into some really slightly disturbing incest / child abuse stuff, which like I said, I'll talk about this more in a minute, but it's not some stuff I really want to see. I feel you can really explain with perfect credibility in a Spider-Man comic. I mean, I look at this and I think, no, this isn't the kind of thing where you want to bring out Spider-Man to talk about. I mean, in fact, the second half really feels generally a fairly substandard after-school special. It also brings to the point where Smith tries to retcon a rape incident into the Black Cat's history, and it just doesn't pan out at all. I mean, it's got some good art from Terry Dodson, who does some good cheesecake, but the second half just really sounds like it. Like Smith should have just thought about this more before he put pen to paper. Yeah.
Even though we love you, Kevin Smith.
Yes, we love you, Kevin. I loved both your panels you did at Comic-Con, but really, it's if this is the case that if this is what happens when you take 3 or 4 years to finish up a series, then you should just let Daredevil the Target remain uncompleted. Okay, this is as opposed to The Tale of One Bad Rat by Brian Talbot, which I just finished reading today. This is a story of a girl named Helen living rough on the British, as a runaway on the British streets, and it's a very good, emotionally powerful story, telling of you see all these runaways littering the streets, and wonder what's their story. Hers is that she was abused by her dad, and Talbot does a great job of showing how damaged she is as a result. It is a somewhat depressing story, but it's also good because Talbot really gets the details right. I mean, it's not just it's not an after school special like the Spider-Man story is. I mean, he's telling it he's committed to telling your story, showing out all of her problems, and it also helps that he's a great artist as well. It feels very realistic, and he just does a great job of bringing all the characters to life. And the emotional climax where she confronts her dad is handled extremely well. Like I said, some of you might find this depressing, but overall, it's a very strong story. It's something I'd highly recommend to everyone. Yeah. Now, moving back down to the more of the junk food scale of comic books, we've got Dr. 13, Architecture and Morality. Excuse me, Dr. 13, Architecture and Mortality.
Oh, okay.
Okay, this is written by Brian Azzarello and illustrated by Cliff Chiang. Cliff Chiang does some great stuff here. He's got a great, slightly cartoonish sense of style, but he's got a great how to tell a story and how to present as well. It's done in a very appealing style. His art is easily the best thing about the series. Because the thing is that while Brian Azzarello is a great writer, as you can see in his crime epic magnum opus, 100 Bullets, he's got some issues with clarity, which aren't really an issue here. But the thing is, let's see, Dr. 13 is basically a skeptic type character. He's basically the kind of guy who tries to disprove that all alien abduction incidents are fake, that there are no ghosts. He's this kind of skeptic. But after one case brings him in contact with some of DC's really more obscure and weird characters like Genius Jones, the kid who can answer any question for 10 cents. Vampire, a very 80s-esque vampire character, and it's Nazi Ape, who I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Then you got Infectious Lass, who can infect any disease on type of character. Then they got Anthro, the primordial boy, and it's just really weird characters. And I've heard a lot of people talk about this series as a love letter to DC's really old and obscure and weird characters that nobody loves anymore. Mm-hmm. The problem is that Azrael isn't using these characters to tell a story. He's using them as an ironic device in order to indict some of the people who are currently running DC's big event type stories. These people being Grant Morrison, Greg Rucka, Jeff Johns, and Mark Waid, as people who are just trying to say, oh no, we don't like these characters as they are. We need to update them, make them more relevant than they are right now. Well, the problem is with the way that Azrael is telling the story is that his affection for these characters feels kind of disingenuous in the fact that he's not telling a proper story that these characters were designed for. He's using them as ironic commentary, which is ironic because I mean the characters, the way that that characters like Rucka, Johns, Morrison, Wade have updated, like they've made them more relevant and made some great stories, timeless stories for these characters. But Azarel is just using them as ironic commentary, which is, it feels kind of disingenuous since Azarel isn't known for any like love of these characters. He's basically known for like telling really gritty crime stories, like in 100 Bullets, Johnny Double, and also his spaghetti western, Loveless. Mm-hmm. So it feels really kind of hard to take any kind of commentary that Azarel is taking here seriously. And in the end, it just really makes me glad that I waited and got this for $5 at the Things from Another World table than paying full price for it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on to a higher class of things, you got The Interman by Jeff Parker. Now, I've heard about this for years as a great action story, and Jeff Parker has gone into bigger and better things at Marvel, doing some good stuff with their adventures titles and his Agents of Atlas series. But this is a fun action story because basically the Interman, or a guy named Van Meech, he was basically the product of an intergovernmental experiment to make like the ultimate soldier type character, someone who can survive like nuclear wars and any kind of conflicts. Because basically he's got the ability to adapt to anything. He can, like I said, if he's underwater for a long time, he'll develop gills, and his skin will harden to preserve body heat. He also conduct electricity like electric eels, and like if you toss him into a fight long enough, he'll eventually be able to adapt and like learn the other person's moves. It's a cool character, and the story has the feel of an old school Bond movie, and the fact that he's constantly moving around all over the world, and they've got all these people from the different governments trying to attack and kill him. It's a fun story, and even though I got this for, I think if I got this for 60% off, mm-hmm. I'd still probably, after reading through this now, I would say it is worth full price. It's a good action story. In fact, I'd probably make a good movie. It's like probably in the vein of Bond and the Jason Bourne movies, only the more like a superhero-ish bent. And frankly, it says Volume 1 on the side of this, and there's been no indication that Parker is coming back to do a second one, but I personally wouldn't mind seeing him do a second one eventually. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one other thing I like about Comic-Con is that Viz, world's big, U.S.'s biggest manga publisher, likes selling early copies of stuff at their booth. This year, there's some early copies of Takehiko Inoue's Slam Dunk. Mm-hmm. Yeah, his legendary basketball manga, which is one of the biggest selling Shonen Jump titles of all time. I think it's like 30 million copies sold. Actually, probably more. I think it's close to probably 100 million copies sold throughout the world.
Wow. And
it's a story of Sakuragi Hanamichi, who's basically like he's just arrived in high school and he's been shot down by over 50 girls trying to get a date. But the 51st girl he encounters, turns out she's a big basketball fan, and she's just his type. So as he tries to get involved with basketball, he winds up antagonizing her brother and challenging him to a big face-off, which he actually manages to score one dunk over this guy, like a big gorilla-type character. Mm. And after proving his dedication to trying to get on the basketball team, he eventually starts to go on to. He's in theory going to go on to become one of the best people on the team because this series really adheres to the standard Shonen Jump formula of I'm going to be the best at X, be it
right.
Pirate hunting, fighting, it's like basketball, football, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and like I said, the thing is though is that this series was published in 1991, so really all the stuff that's become standard issue in Shonen Jump these days, it's a result of this series right here. Mm. So it's really can't really hard. I can't really call it too hard for being slightly formulaic, but right. it still does a good job of getting interested in the characters. Like Hanamichi is a very very goofy yet endearing character. And he's interesting enough that you're eventually going to want to see how this series develops. I mean, frankly, the most annoying part of this series for me is that Viz is saying that its second volume isn't due out until February of 2009.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many volumes were produced for this series?
30 plus, I think.
30 plus.
Wow. Yeah. So I hope this catches on so that Viz decides to release even more of these. I mean, it's really, it's like if you already like the series, you're gonna be glad it's being released by Viz. Like I said, if you hate everything that Shonen Jump stands for, this isn't going to change your mind. I mean, I can't say this is. Like I said, a lot of stuff that's you see in this series has been done to death by other later Shonen Jump series, but as is right now, it's a fun title. That being said, the other advanced title Viz was announcing was Black Lagoon.
Right on.
Yes. You've been listening to us talk about this in the anime podcast.
Right.
You know, we really like Black Lagoon a whole lot.
Black Lagoon.
Yes. And it's great that they're bringing out the manga over here. Now, the only issue, though, is that, well, you see, after having seen the anime, I'm kind of in like that kind of marking time mode where where I'm waiting for the series to like start telling stories beyond what we've seen in the anime, so we can like find out what happens next.
Right.
Okay. Because now that I've seen like 24 episodes of the series and I've seen up to the Fujiyama Gangster Paradise arc, like we're kind of like in review mode here after reading the first volume. Now, first of all, it's first volume, a lot of fun though. It's like it's fun like noting the differences between the anime and the manga because you'll notice like certain things like in the Killer Maid arc where like the difference there's more action. There's more of the shootout between Roberta and Revi in the anime, and also the Terminator parallels between Roberta and the T-1000 are played up much more in the anime. They're not quite played up here in the manga right there, which is understandable considering there's more. The anime allows for more depiction of motion and straight up action. But still, it's a lot of the first volume of the series is a lot of fun. I was still entertained, like taking note of like all the differences. And even though it's like you'll notice, you can see artist Ray Hiroe growing from the beginning of volume to the end. It still comes highly recommended, and I really wish that Viz would get this stuff out sooner because it's like after now that the third Black Lagoon series has been announced, I've been waiting even longer to find out new stories based on how they're publishing things. Okay, but still, this is like the this is like the first batch of stuff, like the most notable stuff from the first batch of stuff I read from Comic-Con, and that's like I said, I could keep going, but we're going to stop here. Well, not for any particular reason, just because it's a good arbitrary stopping point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I will ever say that thanks to this Comic-Con, I do have enough stuff to actually do a Superman podcast, and we find out about that next week.
All right, and with that, we'll wrap it up, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, later.